unfold.
So let's talk about the world's most famous painting. We all know her, but how did she get so famous? Well, the answer isn't really in an art history book. It's in a police report.
I know, it sounds crazy, right? But what if I told you that before 1911, the Mona Lisa wasn't this global icon? She was just another painting in the Louvre. So what on earth happened? You see, the Mona Lisa's fame wasn't cooked up by some fancy art critics. Nope. It was created by a thief. This is the incredible story of how her disappearance turned her into a legend. To really get how wild this transformation was, we've got to turn back the clock. We're going to visit the Louvre back in 1911, a time before the Mona Lisa was a household name. You got to picture the Louvre back then. People weren't rushing to see the Mona Lisa. They were all about these huge, dramatic, in-your-face paintings like the Raft of the Medusa. The Mona Lisa, she was this small, kind of quiet portrait in a really crowded room. Yeah, she was respected, for sure, but a superstar, not even close. You know, her fan club was pretty exclusive back then. It was mostly a small group of intellectuals who were obsessed with that mysterious smile. To them, she was this enigmatic femme fatale, but to the general public, she was just another face in a very, very big gallery. This quote from the critic Walter Pater just captures her niche appeal perfectly. He called her a vampire, this ancient, mysterious being. For the cultural elite, she was a deep, dark puzzle. For pretty much everyone else, though, she was just a painting. So, the big question, how on earth do you steal a Renaissance masterpiece from what's supposed to be the world's most famous museum? Well, back in 1911, it was ridiculously easy. The Louvre in 1911 was basically a thief's dream playground. Get this, fewer than 150 guards for a 45-acre museum. That's massive. There were no cameras, no alarms, and on Mondays, when it was closed for cleaning, basically anyone in a workman's uniform could just wander around wherever they wanted. And this is our guy, Vincenzo Perugia. He was an Italian immigrant and, get this, a former Louvre employee. In fact, he was one of the men hired to install the protective glass case for the Mona Lisa. He knew the museum's layout, its schedule, and all of its weak spots. He was, ironically, the perfect man for the job. The heist itself was, honestly, just brutally simple. Perugia just walks in with all the other workers on a Monday morning. He goes to the empty gallery, lifts the entire 200-pound framed painting right off the wall, takes it to a quiet staircase, pops the small wood panel out of its super heavy frame, tucks it under his coat, and just walks out. And here's where it gets even crazier. His entire plan almost falls apart at a locked exit door. But then, in this unbelievable stroke of luck, a plumber happens to walk by, sees a fellow workman struggling with the door, and opens it for him. No questions asked. And just like that, Perugia is out on the streets of Paris with the Mona Lisa. So the painting was gone, and in that empty space on the wall, something new was about to be born. A legend. Okay, let this sink in for a second. 28 hours went by before a single person at the Louvre even noticed she was gone. That tells you everything you need to know about how much attention was being paid to her back then. So who finally raises the alarm? Not a guard, no. It's an artist, Louis Beyroud, who came in on Tuesday to paint a copy of her. When he saw just the 4 empty hooks, he and the guards just assumed she was off with the museum photographers. It took them hours to finally realize what had actually happened and for the panic to set in. And then, when the museum finally reopened, this bizarre thing started happening. Thousands of people lined up, not to see the other priceless masterpieces, but to stare at the empty space on the wall where the Mona Lisa used to be. They left flowers, notes. Her absence had become a bigger attraction than her presence ever was. Well, the media was having an absolute field day, of course, and the police were getting desperate for a lead. They started looking at the artsy, avant-garde types in Paris, and they landed on a prime suspect. Pablo Picasso. Yeah, that Picasso. So while the cops are grilling literally one of the most famous artists in the world, the real thief was hiding in plain sight. And his reasons for the heist? Well, they turned out to be just as mysterious as that famous smile. So what was his deal? Why did he do it?
Was he a patriot, or was he just in it for the cash? He claimed he was on a patriotic mission to return the painting to Italy, mistakenly believing Napoleon had stolen it. But then you look at his letters home, and he's talking about making a fortune. The truth? It's probably somewhere in the middle.
So while this massive international manhunt is going on, where's the Mona Lisa? You're not going to believe it. For over 2 years, it was stashed in a false bottom trunk in Perugia's tiny one-room Paris apartment right under a pile of his clothes. And at one point, the police even came and questioned him in that very room, and they never found a thing.
Okay, so after 28 long months of this, the pressure is mounting, and Perugia decides it's finally time to bring the Mona Lisa out of hiding. In late 1913, he finally makes his move. He contacts an art dealer in Florence trying to sell the painting. The dealer is, you can imagine, stunned. He calls in the director of the famous Uffizi Gallery to check if it's real. It was. Perugia was arrested right away, but the Italian courts kinda saw him as a folk hero, a patriot, and they gave him this super lenient sentence of just 7 months. And when she finally got back to the Louvre in 1914, oh boy, she wasn't just a painting anymore. She was a full-blown celebrity. We're talking over 100,000 people flooding in just in the first 2 days to get a glimpse of her. The heist had made her a global phenomenon. I mean, look at the difference here. The transformation is just night and day. Before 1911, she's a respected masterpiece. After 1914, she's a global pop culture icon. Her security went from a few simple hooks to her own dedicated wall behind bulletproof glass. And the visitors went from polite admirers to a constant frenzied pilgrimage. In the end, you could say the theft was the final touch on the painting. It added this whole new layer that even Leonardo couldn't have imagined, a story. By stealing her, Vincenzo Perugia accidentally launched the greatest marketing campaign in art history. He made a quiet little portrait the most famous face on the entire planet.